dive into what Mark Adams and company have been up to on the recruiting trail the last couple of weeks. Tune in to today's Locked On Texas Tech. We've got a good one for you.
Are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Texas Tech, a member of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Be sure that you have subscribed to our channel. I know I tell you every single episode, but yesterday we released our Kevin McCullough episode as soon as the news dropped, exclusively on YouTube. So if you're not subscribed to our channel there, you're missing out. I'm Ryan Mainville. I cover Texas Tech for the Dallas Morning News. I'm joined by Emery Lida, a longtime Texas Tech analyst, writer, and podcaster. Today, we're just doing a little State of the Union, taking a look around the recruiting trail, seeing what Mark Adams and company have been up to. Obviously, a lot of the initial buzz of the offseason and the transfer portal has died down, but this staff remains very, very active in its recruiting efforts. Emery, I got to tell you, it's a little strange. We're sitting here and it's April 27th, and really the only progressive kind of recruiting thing that we've watched happen to this point is Demario Williams committing to Texas Tech, which essentially appeared out of the dust. And so it's been pretty slow so far, but there's still a lot of loose ends that I think Mark Adams and company can tie up.
Yeah, on one hand, it's really surprising that we're already at the end of April, and Demario Williams is the only commit we've had so far. And again, like you mentioned, he was out of thin air, basically. Like, hadn't really been on the map as a Tech target, hadn't really heard of anything from his end about which schools were pursuing him, and then suddenly you look up and he's committed. So certainly that was a surprise, but at the same time, if you look at the time frame of last year, now is about the time when you start getting a streamline of transfers. You're seeing it across the country. You had the early wave of guys that really made the decision quick, and now you're starting to see guys that are making quicker decisions. Guys are starting to get out and kind of finalize their top three, make their decisions after making visits. And certainly with the way things have worked out, it's sort of been a little bit slower played this year, just because the guys that Tech has been primarily going after, either A, they've fallen out of the race with the Antonio Reeves, or B, happen to be taking kind of later visits, such as a guy like Davion Harman, who just entered the portal and is, by all intents and purposes, been kind of someone that had to deal with a different school academic calendar, and Oregon, I think, kind of played into that. But certainly, I mean, you've got guys in general that Tech has been pursuing that haven't been right at the front of the portal, kind of the guys making their decisions in the first week. So in that case, it's not really that surprising to see. But certainly the way that everything has been going so slowly has to be pretty agonizing. I mean, it's been agonizing for us to follow, to go weeks at a time where basically the only information we're getting is just where a guy's leaning, and it seems like it changes every single day.
Yeah, and I mean, things are moving slowly, and it's a little frustrating to watch at times, just because you can be really antsy as a basketball fan, or even just looking on and seeing Texas Tech take all of these hits to its roster, obviously in need of a couple of scholarship players, but things are progressing slower than maybe you'd like. But before we get into even the negatives, let's take a look at some of the positives. And I think a really, really exciting trend for Texas Tech in the past couple of weeks has been that of Davion Harman, a name that will probably be very familiar to a lot of folks. Played 2 years at Oklahoma from 19 to 21, was a very good basketball player there. Didn't really, stick out in any particular area. Like he's a guard that doesn't rack up a ton of assists. He doesn't necessarily shoot the lights out from three, but he is a very, very consistent scorer and a good defender. There's been steam on Harman for a couple of weeks now. I didn't even know this was possible, but Chase Camplin, who works for Red Raider Sports, was reporting on this past week that Harmon was granted some sort of permission that allowed him and his camp to be in contact with Texas Tech before officially entering the portal. Well, Harmon has entered the portal as of yesterday, and it seems like things are trending in the direction that Harmon will be a Red Raider next year. Obviously, spent last season at Oregon, where his shooting got a lot better, his assists got a little bit better, and his scoring took a little bit of a dip. But I think there's still plenty to like on Harmon. Emery, give me your initial kind of rundown on who Harmon is as a basketball player.
Harmon's a really interesting case because he's a guy that has the explosiveness to really get to the rim. It was something that he excelled at his first 2 years at Oklahoma. Certainly his second year really took massive leaps as a finisher. And in terms of a self-creator, he's about as good as you're going to get on the market when it comes to guys that are able to create their own shot efficiently. He's had 3 years of experience doing that at high major basketball. Obviously, his burst is good. From an offensive standpoint, his shot is something that has developed over his 3 years. I mean, obviously, last year at Oregon, he was 36.7% from 3 on 4 attempts a game. Also shot 73% on the free throw line. Hasn't been below 33% from 3 in any of his 3 years. And that's on a relatively difficult diet of shots. So I feel confident saying that he's at a minimum an average to slightly above average shooter. Exactly how good he is, I think it's going to depend on how much more steps he can make and what kind of role he gets. But certainly, this guy that offensively has sort of the versatility to play into any sort of ball handling role. And then defensively, you're talking about a guy that is a pretty intense on-ball defender. I wouldn't say that he's as active as a guy like a Malik Wilson or a Davion Warren, but he certainly is capable of getting in, disrupting the ball handler and getting into passing lanes. An average over 1 steal a game all of his 3 years. Off the ball, I think he's not quite what you would expect from a Tech defender. He's not someone that switches as well as other guards that we've seen in the past. Some of that's due to his height. Some of it's just down to instinct and positioning. But still, I mean, seems to grade out as, if not a positive defender, at least an average one that can hold his own. So really he's a well-rounded player. I wouldn't say that he has any strength that's like elite per se, but someone that his weaknesses are generally not that severe. Like you could say maybe he's a little bit turnover prone, but even then, I mean, if you look at him from a ball handler standpoint, like he's relatively consistently been at about a 2 assists, 1.5 turnover a game ratio his 3 years in college. And that's with him. While he's been a primary ball handler at points, he's never been the main guy running an offense. He's had Austin Reeves in Oklahoma, then last year had Will Richardson at Oregon. So it's been hard for him to kind of be that steady point guard. So, I mean, if you look on the tape, he's a good playmaker. I think that kind of outweighs the little bit of turnover prone issues that he has, but certainly just an all-around good player to watch.
Good segue, especially in light of the Kevin McCullough news. The assumption would be that Davion Harman is coming here to play point guard, or maybe even what would be more helpful, because people hear point guard and they immediately think like 7 assists per game. Davion Harman would be coming to Texas Tech to play lead guard. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, lead guard, primary ball handler, anything but point guard.
Yeah, I think he'd be a immediate starter. That's considering that Tech doesn't do something pretty insane in the transfer portal the next couple of weeks. And by all accounts, it looks like he would be the guy that's tasked with running the offense.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's reasonable to expect. It's not like he doesn't have any experience being a high-level ball handler. Like, he would come in and instantly have the most experience of anyone on your roster as a guard. I mean, Malik Wilson obviously had that experience at Louisiana. You've seen other guys sort of play that role, but generally speaking, I mean, Davion Harman's someone that has that experience at a high major level, and he's coming to Tech, if he comes to Tech, with the sort of ambition of being a lead contributor on a winning team. I don't think he's coming to Tech to ride the bench, and certainly this roster has a void at the guard position that needs to be filled, and Harman provides you the opportunity to fill that and gives you the chance to really have someone that can create his own shot, can get to the lane effectively, and can shoot well. So that's just, as a player, he's got a lot of strengths to him.
All right, let's switch over to the high school route, but first, a quick word from Built Bar. This is a time of year that I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not a resolution because I actually enjoy eating Built Bar products. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. They're low in calorie, high in protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. Go to built.com and scroll down the macros chart. You'll be blown away. They're high in protein, low in calorie, high in fiber, low in carb. Go to built.com today to get your hands on some of your own. Now, for a big announcement, for the first time ever, Locked On is hosting live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft from our studios in Dallas with pick-by-pick analysis from our local team experts and draft gurus. Tune in all 3 days as our draft team guides you through every pick and every trade in real time. It all starts on Thursday, April 28th at 6 p.m., available on the Locked On NFL channel on YouTube as well as the Audacity app. All right, so things seem to be trending in the positive direction with Davion Harman, who just officially entered the portal. Taking a look at the high school route, the name to watch right now, and the guy that everybody's buzzing about is Elijah Fisher. Obviously, I mean, really, like Texas Tech probably hasn't been in contention for a prospect of his caliber since Jonathan Kuminga, and even then there were some interesting ties there within Tomboy. But Fisher, man, it's just straight up a testament to the work that this staff has put in to recruit him, especially Sean Sutton, who's just been really, really pressing into Fisher and working hard to recruit him. But this is a guy who it continues to seem like there's steam for. Rated as a 99 overall prospect in the 24/7 Sports Composite. He is currently 20th best prospect in the nation, the number one shooting guard available in the 2023 class, 5-star consensus prospect, really good player, really good scorer, just a fantastic basketball player. Like there's so much I could say on Fisher, but there's a lot to like. Emery, what have you seen from Fisher over the last couple of weeks of play, and kind of where do you think Texas Tech is at right now?
Well, Fisher might be the most talented recruit Texas Tech has ever had the opportunity to go after. I mean, you're looking at someone that has scored over 70 points in a game. He's been a 5-star basically since the rankings for the 2023 class started to come out. He was as high as number 2 in the 2047 rankings at some point in the last year. And obviously that's fallen a little bit, but he's still someone that's supremely talented, can score at all 3 levels, can create his own shot, can play effectively as a wing. He's got a lot of length. And generally speaking, he's just really an elite level player. And obviously there's questions on the defensive end, but he has the tools, and I think he has the IQ to be able to be an effective defender. And so you have that going for him. And as far as Texas Tech goes, I mean, obviously for Fisher, the main priorities seem to be getting early playing time and being on a winning program and presumably getting good NIL deals as well. And I think Tech can cover all of those boxes. Now, there's obviously been some steam. Seems like a team like Auburn has kind of entered the race as of late and might have something to say about that. But generally speaking, it seems like Tech has been really on Fisher's case since the get-go. And they've been the team that's probably been most consistently talking to him. And by all accounts, if he's going to play in the 2022 class, I can't think of him, or if he's going to reclassify into 2022, it seems like Texas Tech is the most probable option at this point, and they have been for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously reclassification is a big thing with him that a lot of people are considering. That's something that he has publicly addressed, that he's having a conversation about with his family as he kind of gauges the pros and cons. And so while nothing is final and there's a couple of months for things to play out here, it's definitely something that he is considering. Another thing that he's considering is the professional route with leagues like Overtime Elite and the G League. He has said that college is likely the route that he will be going, but those things are still up in the air. In terms of the college route, Texas Tech is the only visit he's taken. He's got a couple of more to take. It seems like those will probably go to Auburn and Memphis. At least those seem like the 2 programs that are in the lead right now. Potentially may take one to, Oklahoma State, who was really, really aggressive on him early on. Maybe Kansas or Kentucky, who have also been recruiting him heavily. But Emory, it's pretty crazy that we're sitting here talking about one of the best prospects in the country, one of the best scorers that I've watched in college basketball in quite a while. And Texas Tech, by all accounts, seems like the leader. And they seem like they have a very firm grasp in first place. They've obviously got to seal the deal. But this is a really, really good player. And to, be looking at a guy who can either play the four or probably like a massive three for you at the college level, it's really exciting because this guy has the ability to just be one of the best talents in college basketball. I firmly believe that. And if he wants to get that early playing time, if he wants to put himself in a position where he can play a lot of minutes, I do think that will be available for him at Texas Tech. I think that would be available for him anywhere because he's that good. But I do believe that the opportunity would present itself well at Texas Tech.
Yeah, he's the most versatile as you're going to see from a guy entering college. He's already 6'5", 6'6", has really good length, like I mentioned. He's someone that's already built like a college basketball player, like a D1 player. And he's got the experience as a leading scorer throughout his prep career and high school career. So you've got a lot going for him in that sense. And, I mean, he's someone that you simply can't turn down. You look at his natural ability and raw talent is pretty much more than anybody else you're going to see in the 2023 class. And I mean, this is a guy that if Tech gets him would far and away be the best prospect they've ever gotten. I mean, you've had guys like Demario Burnett, Jamias Ramsey, and Micah Peavy, Kevon Moore. Those guys, Elijah Fisher is an entirely different tier of prospect to them, with all due respect to those guys, because he provides you with someone that has been really a top 20 prospect for his class the entire time. He's showcased his ability for years. He's got blue bloods. He's got high-level programs all across the country looking at him. And for Tech to be right on the verge of landing him is really impressive. I did not think that was going to be the case when we first talked about him a few months back, and certainly things have evolved since then. Obviously, the opportunity to play early, I think, plays a factor in that. And, I mean, he's got the talent to play anywhere, but certainly having sort of the roster that Tech has and the way that they've shown to be able to develop wings over the years and the way that they have the ability to utilize them, I think is something that's going to play into Tech's favor when it comes to recruiting Fisher. And just in general, I think that the opportunities that lie at Tech in terms of getting early playing time, playing on a roster that's known for the ability to sort of highlight wings and guys like TJ Shannon, guys like Jared Culver, Zaire Smith is pretty attractive to recruits. And then you also add in the fact that Tech is going to be on the national scene next year. Don't know exactly how they're going to be as a roster, how competitive they'll be, but this is a team that, because of what they did this year, is going to have exposure to them. They're going to enter the season likely close to the top 25, if not in the top 25. And it's a real chance for a guy like Elijah Fisher to kind of jump back as a prospect, get back into the top 10, and potentially earn himself a really nice payday in the NBA.
Yeah, it's interesting with Fisher because I just can't remember a situation where Texas Tech was in a position like this before. I mean, he really does feel like, or it feels like he's really Texas Tech's to lose at this point. Like the way that Texas Tech does not end up landing Elijah Fisher is they get lazy or they take their foot off the gas in recruiting or they end up filling a spot on the roster and kind of back off. I don't see any of those things happening. I mean, there's a really good chance in my mind, reclassification or not, that Elijah Fisher is going to be a Red Raider. And that should be very, very exciting for anybody that has any kind of attachment to Texas Tech basketball, because this guy's a player, man. Imre, give me a quick percentage on what you think the likelihood is that Elijah Fisher is a Red Raider regardless of class.
I've got to go with 65%. Maybe a little bit on the conservative end based off of what we've heard lately. But, I mean, these things, things can change in an instant. And obviously the threat of G League Overtime Elite, like, even though he said that his priority lies on the college route, those things can change pretty much overnight. And the fact that you've got Auburn and Memphis entering the phrase a little bit concerning, but overall, I mean, Tech's in a really good spot. And like you mentioned, I think he's theirs to lose as long as things go to plan. I feel like you have a really good shot at landing Elijah Fisher.
I would like Texas Tech to be very aggressive in the next couple of weeks before he gets a couple of more visits on the books. You can take 5 OVs, so he's got 4 left. Again, you got to automatically assume that one of those will go to Memphis and one of those will go to Auburn. But Yeah, I'd like for Texas Tech to be as aggressive as possible until those visits happen because, as we've seen kind of with Kendrick Davis and a couple of other guys, once you start getting visits to a school where a guy already has some sort of attachment, it's really, really difficult. Tyreek Key at Tennessee, it's really, really difficult to put yourself back in the lead. So I'd like for Texas Tech to remain aggressive here. Elijah Fisher, man, he's an exciting one to talk about, but there are plenty of other players that Texas Tech is chatting with right now. We'll get into a couple of more, but first, a word from BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, odds, podcasts, and reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Emery, the guy that has kind of gained the most attention and Texas Tech seems to be in the best position for this offseason has been Fardaws Aimaq, the transfer out of Utah Valley. Had the best rebounding season in college basketball since 1980 as a junior, when he averaged 15 boards per game. Last year, averaged 18.9 points per game, 13.6 boards, 1.7 assists, 1.3 blocks. He's got a very, very crazy stat line. It is actually currently on an official visit at Texas Tech, getting a look around campus. Went to Bark in the Park last night. Unfortunately, Texas Tech somehow found a way to lose to ACU in baseball, but seemed like he had a good time with the coaches. I know that Corey Williams, Mark Adams, Sean Sutton, Pinkins, a lot of GAs. Everybody was on hand to make sure that he had a good experience last night. And as we're recording this on Wednesday, this will kind of be the intensive part of his visit where, he gets to put on the scarlet and black, take some pictures, tour the Womble. It's exciting, man. And I think Aimaq is a guy that a lot of people have, had their eyes on, and it looks like Texas Tech is at a pivotal moment in their recruitment of him.
Yeah, Amac being on his official visit is nice to finally see. It's been a little while since he entered the portal, and obviously he was one of the first guys Tech was on. And by all accounts, they've maintained the front runner status since then. And so for him to be in that position, kind of now be visiting, this is the chance to really go aggressive and sort of secure that commitment. Even if he doesn't commit right away, certainly you have the opportunity to really establish yourselves as the clear front runners, which by all accounts online, it seems like they already have. But certainly it's always nice to have the potential to sort of confirm that and reaffirm any doubts that he might have. And so I would say that Aimaq is kind of the clear number one priority among the guys that we haven't already talked about, being Fisher and Harmon. But Aimaq is someone that Tech has been at since the get-go. Like you mentioned, he's a really good rebounder. I mean, the last two seasons averaging over 13 rebounds a game is incredible. That's numbers that you hardly ever see in college basketball. He's a good shot blocker as well. Obviously, a little bit of questions about his mobility on the defensive end. Offensively, I mean, I've kind of come around on his offensive game. I think that the touch he shows on flip shots is something that's really impressive to me. And he's all around just a really intriguing player because the rebounding is going to be something that's going to be there night in, night out. Offensively, he showed some flashes with the jump shot. I'm not entirely sold on it, but he's shown that ability as a shooter. And just, I mean, having a guy like him added to Tech's roster adds to what you can do on both the offensive and the defensive end. It gives you probably the best rim protector that you could find or that you're going to be having outside of a Daniel Bacho. He's instantly going to add some in that aspect. He's going to give you the rebounding that I know a lot of Tech fans really clamor for. And his post game, I mean, it's not quite what Bryson Williams is, but it's still something that he can really utilize. So there's a lot to like about him as a player, and hopefully there's a lot to like about Tech from his perspective when he's looking at what he wants to do going forward.
Well, it seems like it's been more losses than wins for Texas Tech over the last couple of weeks. I mean, you miss out on Norchard Omir, you miss out on Kendrick Davis, you miss out on Tyreek Key. It's been a lot of silence over the last couple of weeks as those guys have gone off the board. Emory, as you're looking around the transfer portal, I mean, where else is there for Texas Tech to turn? Do you see anybody available in the portal that you think that Texas Tech should reach out to?
Well, obviously, there's Sully Bum from UTEP, which I believe Tech has already reached out to. You've got guys like Baylor Sherman from South Dakota State, which pretty much everyone in the country has reached out to. Obviously, it's interesting because of the top three guys in the portal, when you look at scoring numbers and stuff like that, you've got Antoine Davis, Malachi Smith, Jameer Young. I think all three of those guys are sort of somewhere in the East Coast settled, specifically Young and Davis both look like they're going to be going either to the Big East or the ACC. So on that front, there's really kind of limited options. Beyond that, though, I mean, you're talking about really just kind of looking down the list. You've got guys like Tyree Appleby potentially coming from Florida. He's someone that obviously with Al Pinkins having a relationship with him previously. Then you have a couple of guys that are familiar faces for a couple of different reasons I really want to highlight. And those would be Josh Imbala being one, and Courtney Ramey being the second one. I think that Imbala provides you with the kind of front court option that you saw last year, where you can run sort of a true big a la Fardaws Aimaq, and then you also have Imbala, and then you also have Bacho and O'Banner. You can run kind of the 2 big lineup at all times and have the versatility with Imbala and O'Banner to get away with that. And then from Ramey's perspective, he's a guard that can create his own shot, has been lethal from 3-point range at times as throughout his college career. And regardless of whatever antics he kind of displayed whenever Texas played Tech, you still want a player of that caliber. So I think those two, as well as Bums from UTEP, are going to be Sully Bum from UTEP are going to be kind of the three main targets I would look for if Tech hasn't already reached out to them, which I know they have with Bum, but the other two are kind of up in the air.
Aren't you a big Isaac Likekele guy, or am I just making that up?
Okay, I am, but I'm a little bit on the skeptical train when it comes to his fit on the roster, because you already have Malik Wilson, who's going to be taking a lot of minutes, presumably. And, I mean, Likely's a guy that requires spacing around him. I think Malik Wilson, to play heavy minutes, is going to require spacing around him. And as much as I would love to see Isaac Likely in a Texas Tech uniform, and I think he's a really good player, the fact that you're already going after Davion Harman, you've already got kind of guys like Wilson on the roster. I'm not sure where the fit is. And I mean, obviously, I would be shocked if Tech doesn't reach out to him. But in terms of guys you're looking at in the portal, I feel like getting guys that can create their own shot and shoot effectively in the guard position and are switchable from a big standpoint would be kind of where I'm looking at.
Very good take. I think I agree with you almost entirely. I mean, Isaac Likely is a very, very good player. I mean, he is just fit to play defense in Mark Adams' system. But on the offensive end, he's not exactly the most productive player scoring wise. He's really limited with his shot. The playmaking is kind of inconsistent. And I mean, for him to do pretty much anything offensively, he requires a lot of ball in hand time, which if you're pitching to Davion Harman to come in and be the lead guard, those two guys cannot play side by side. Like, I just don't think it would really happen to a degree that would be good for either player. And so I think that's a perfectly good take. Courtney Ramey, man, there's been no reported contact from Texas Tech to Ramey, and I just scratched my head. I know that it's like a little bit weird to be landing 2 UT transfers in one offseason, but man, well, let's make a call. You know, this is a guy that's got a good shot. He's an explosive scorer. He's a good guard. He's got Big 12 experience. I mean, he checks every box for me and what you would need on this roster. And so that's a call that I'd certainly like for Mark Adams and company to make. And then you mentioned Josh Imbala. Why not? Run it back, man. Let's see it again. I do think that you mentioned a little bit of skepticism on the defensive end. I'm actually kind of excited to see what he would look like in Adams' system, mainly just because I feel like some guys like Bryson and Marcus Santos Silva adapted so well this past offseason that if you get him in early and you really let him get in shape, I think things could get interesting. But any closing thoughts on the transfer portal? Any guys that you're watching over the next couple of weeks?
I just want to know what happens with Trey Mitchell personally. It seems like things have been dead silent on that front the last couple months, and I don't know if Tech is worth reaching out to him from Tech standpoint, but certainly I think Mitchell would be another transfer from UT that would be intriguing. I'm hoping that Tech reaches out to Courtney Ramey, but certainly that's obviously not our decision, and obviously there's a lot that goes into that. So those are guys, but I think the main thing is if there's still a lot to be uncovered. I mean, we're still really less than a month into the off season, and last year it took a while for guys like Kevin O'Banner to come open, and for him to reveal himself as a real key Tech target. You've had other guys like Adonis Arms who are kind of a little bit under the radar. You had someone this cycle like Demario Williams that kind of came in last minute, like he didn't really see it coming, and then suddenly he just commits out of thin air. So you've got all of those things going on. There's a lot to sort of figure out in the portal. It's a process, but we'll see. I've got faith in Mark Adams finding the guys that fit the system well and will be good additions. And even if it doesn't look very clear right now, I think eventually it will.
Yeah, I would say don't panic, but watch closely. There are a couple of key decisions that need to swing into Texas Tech's favor, and while you certainly do need to land a couple of guys, you got time. And so watch closely what Mark Adams and company are doing, and then subscribe to the Locked On Texas Tech podcast feeds because we are going to have the information for you right here, hot and ready, whenever things do end up playing out. So be sure that you are subscribed to our feed wherever you get podcasts, and then you can keep up with us individually on Twitter. You can follow me at rmainvillelbk. You can follow Emery at eraser41, and then you can follow the official Locked On Texas Tech Twitter page at Locked On TTU to get notified whenever our next episode goes live. Until then, thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you on Monday.